Participation is really key, and I think trying to work with families to find out what was important to them pre-injury and what's important to them now is really important. And I think what we often find is that rehab activities really do encompass everybody. So yes, of course, they are based around the client, but if you can be a bit creative and have some fun ideas, then family members can be part of that as well. And I think it then helps them to feel a part of that journey. I think there's a big issue with families having become disconnected after acquired brain injury. And I think trying to bridge that gap within the roles that myself and Claire play is really important. So I don't know, one example is that we were working with a family who have a young son, and in the summer, Claire and I organised a sports day, but one of those goals was just trying to reconnect that relationship of father-son. And we did have some fun, didn't we? There were Nerf guns involved, there were egg and spoon races, and there was a lot of laughter.
Yeah, I think as a family member, when someone's had an acquired brain injury, it affects all of them, from their brother, their sister, the partner, everyone. So actually trying to really understand who they are as a person and who they were before their injury is really important, and understanding their relationship as a family. I think, sometimes these things happen out of nowhere and there's nothing they can do, and the plans they had for their futures completely changed. And an example of someone that I've worked with recently, their plan was to retire and to cycle everywhere together. Then the brain injuries put a halt on that, and they thought they wouldn't be able to achieve that, and that's what they really saw their future as a couple together, enjoying the outdoors and cycling again. But we've worked with them in access to rehab and helped them build to that goal, and they're now able to use adaptive cycling equipment so they can still do that as a couple, and it's really helped them still have the identity they had before their brain injury is still there in their life, and hopefully will continue to develop as they move forward with their journey.
I think sometimes it's important to take a step back and think about what the family members have lost.
Yeah,
I think sometimes, quite rightly, the focus is on the client and everything that they've lost because of their brain injury. But as a family member, there are huge losses. There are, losses of a co-parent, perhaps. There are losses of the ability to be physically intimate with your partner. There are losses of having the ability to communicate with your partner.
And talk about decisions they would have always made together.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Lost.
And like you've said, Claire, losses about future plans and future goals, how you thought your family was going to develop and what goals you had for your family suddenly come to an abrupt halt.
I think that's sort of just thinking about it in a bigger shape, isn't it? It's not just happened to the client, it's happened to the family members, and their lives have changed as well. And I think often in acquired brain injury, there can be some real challenging impairments that have happened, some maybe behavioural changes, their personality isn't the same as before. And actually, that's going to be harder for the person caring for that person at home than perhaps it is for the individual it's happened to, if they maybe don't have the awareness of what's changed with them. And I think it's, I can think of clients that actually the relative has needed more support really than the actual client, because they're the ones that are supporting this change in the individual. They're the ones living with them 24 hours a day. And if they can have the right support, whether it's just time talking to the professional that's there seeing their loved one, or having good psychological support so that they can offload what's happening, it will make a real difference. Because if they're not heard and supported, then actually it could just crumble into pieces around the client that it's happened to.
Something that was said to Claire and I not that long ago, a family member said, this house hasn't had any joy in it for months. And I think it was one of the most heart-wrenching things that we heard, that a family home have no joy. And I think, you know, perhaps the client in that case was less aware of that, but I think that highlights how family members often do need more support. And how can we as healthcare professionals help to bring a bit of that joy back? I don't think it's rocket science. I don't think we don't have a magic wand, but we were saying, weren't we, Claire, that just with a bit of extra time, some careful communication, the ability to be creative, I think that helps. So I think there's always improvements that everybody can make within their practice, but I think working well with families is something that everybody can do. And actually, no matter what your role as a healthcare professional is, I think we have responsibility to do that well.
And I think it's sometimes just taking a step back from what you're doing and going, okay, actually, we might not be getting anywhere. What is the reason for that? Have we made this meaningful for them? And I think sometimes we can all just reflect and go, oh, we got a bit carried away with what we were doing there. But actually, if we refocus it, maybe put ourselves in their shoes and think, what is it that would be important to them? You only have to change what you're doing slightly, and it can make the world of difference just by thinking a bit more laterally, I guess, and being creative and having the right attitude to do that. And
I think I'd also add that, you know, often as healthcare professionals, we work within a team. And I think I would challenge any team that said they really don't have time to work well with families and to give families time, because I think within a team you do. And I think if it's a shared responsibility, it might be that one day I say, oh, I'll make that phone call, or I'll spend a bit of extra time with that family member, while a different member of my team do something else that is felt to be needed to be done. But I think if it's a shared responsibility, then it is possible to work well with families and to include them in the rehab journey with their loved one.
And I think just not being scared to do something a bit different, be creative, think outside the box. It makes treating someone more fun. It makes it more fun for them. They're more likely to improve, actually, if it's meaningful and it's fun for them to do, and they're doing therapy without even realizing. And try and just bring a bit more joy, like we said, back into that family that has been broken from something that's they hadn't planned to happen. And that as professionals, we should feel the joy ourselves that we can do that. And we've got, you know, been given that luxury that we're the ones to help them on that journey. I think it's just about, you know, listening to them and communicating well with the family right from the beginning, as when you meet them, letting them know that you're there for the client, but you're there for them as well. And just that you're listening to them. You know, we don't have any extra training in this. It's just kind of part of what we know, excuse me, that we know works. There's no magic wand. And at the end of the day, the relative is the expert about that client. So you have to listen to them to be able to make it work for everyone.
And I think often what we found along the journey that the client and the family have been on, there have definitely been times when family members have not felt listened to and not felt heard. And so, and that's sad, and I think that's awful. And so often there is groundwork to be done for them to feel like they are going to trust whoever is working with their family member again. And I think that does take time, but I think you've got to give commitment to that. I think you've got to show them that you are there along the journey and you're willing to go that extra mile. And sometimes you're willing to give that extra bit of time to make them feel heard. Clients don't come on their own. They have family and they come as a package, and we have a responsibility to do that well. And I think if we do that well, then the outcomes are better, not only for the client, but for that family unit as well, for the foreseeable future.